Welcome back to People Analytics. I'm your host, Lindsay Patton. Today I have with me Sarah Livnat, who is head of people at North One. Welcome, Sarah.
Hi, Lindsay.
So tell the audience who you are, what you do, and why you do it.
Sure. My name is Sarah Livnat. I'm the CHRO at North One. North One is a banking app for small business. We help small businesses take the stress and complexity out of financial management. I lead up the people and culture function. So that includes the who and the how, who we invite at North One to join us on our mission to help simplify banking for small businesses, as well as how we work together as a team. And I do it because I love empowering people to be successful in their lives. And from a professional standpoint, I have focused my entire career on helping disadvantaged groups or left out groups be able to access better financial services.
That's so awesome. So, community building and connecting with other people, that's one of your passions. So tell me a little bit about your history of, making connections and building community.
Yeah, I love the people role because I really believe in the power of community to do hard things. Together, we can always accomplish more than we can alone. And I learned this when I was actually a volunteer in the PTA. So I took some time off and worked part time in my former role, in my former job. And while I was doing that, I decided to lead up my children's PTA, elementary school PTA, and we were in a community that was a dual immersion community. So we had people from all over who spoke English and Spanish. And as part of that community, I really learned about just the power of communication and having a vision and a mission and being able to inspire and motivate people to work together as a team and as a community. And we were actually really thrived as a community and were able to overcome some pretty difficult changes to our school at the time. And so that was actually where I learned leadership and community building.
That's so awesome. So how did you launch that or incorporate that into your career?
Yeah, well, it was, unplanned, of course. And so when I went back to work full time, I happened to be in a group, public affairs. And my manager at the time actually encouraged me and invited me to take over the communications role. So that was actually a new role for me. But I embraced it with open arms and learned in that process. And what I actually discovered was that a lot of the skills that I picked up leading my children's PTA and kind of communicating the message and kind of keeping everyone sort of focused and intentional about kind of where we were headed came in incredibly handy as I was leading up communications at my former company.
So obviously your children got you involved in PTA, but what kind of pushed you to become president and, bring that community together?
I think it was a commitment to public service, and I was excited to have the time to be able to do that. It had been something that I wanted to do just to be able to get to know the community members and make a real difference at my children's school. And also I was very interested because we were international community. And there was a lot of difference in terms of people's, economic backgrounds and kind of how they showed up that was something that I actually could help with. And so, yeah, I put those skills to work at my job. So my company that I was at the time was a large company. We had over 3,000 people in 3 different countries. And also people with different roles. So people who were knowledge workers and, being paid an annual salary and working on kind of strategic work, people who were working in our retail establishments or our operations groups and being paid by the hour. So just a lot of different backgrounds, different ages, just different demographics. And what I learned in that role was that we could actually make a huge difference in terms of people's engagement across the company by just being focused on kind of one North Star and being able to effectively communicate that over and over and over again, not only from the top, from the senior level executives, but, through all the way down to the managers. And it was incredibly powerful.
So, you get into this communications role. How does that path take you to the people space?
Great question. Yeah. So as part of communications, one of the areas that I found most interesting and fascinating was internal communications,
Mm-hmm.
right? How do you mobilize and keep aligned a large group of people, right, who are separated by everything, geography,
Mm-hmm.
location, demographics, background, profile, language in this case. How do you keep them kind of connected and working toward one common goal, and just the power that that brings to the business and what you're able to accomplish? And so through that work, I got very interested in employee engagement and ended up moving into our people and culture group
Mm-hmm.
to focus exclusively on that engagement and our company's culture. And so we'd never actually had somebody dedicated to that. And so I kind of launched into that. And my background prior to that was in product management. And so I sort of
Mm-hmm.
walked into that with a product manager's mindset, just to really understand, okay, who
Oh.
is my, who my employee is my customer, and the managers, of course, are a big constituency there,
Mm-hmm.
and a way to be able to affect change. And so, how do we work together to be able to measure how people are feeling, kind of what are the root causes behind their either satisfaction or dissatisfaction, and how do we address those in a methodical way to help improve people's overall work experience at the company?
Wow, that's a really interesting way to look at it. So, has having a different background going into the people space helped you look at it in, with various points of view, like you just mentioned?
I mean, I think so. Again,
Mm-hmm.
I haven't lived as a solely, exclusive people and culture person my entire career, but I'm certainly the experiences that I've had in product and now in communications have absolutely impacted the way that I approach the work. And now as the CEO at North One. But what I'm noticing before I accepted the position to go into engagement in the people and culture team in my prior company, I did kind of scan the industry just to see what how would somebody with my background be received. And what I was
Mm-hmm.
really enthusiastic about seeing was that there actually is an embrace in the people and culture space of a lot of the principles that are used in the product kind of
Oh,
development world.
wow.
So we're starting to see just the same kinds of frameworks, approaches to work, thinking about your kind of customer, being customer driven. So I thought, okay, this is great. Actually, I'm coming in at a perfect time, and people will appreciate this type of approach, even though it may be somewhat different than people have done in the past.
Yeah, I love that perspective. So, you're in the people space now. What are you really enjoying about it?
I am enjoying just the kind of breadth and depth that this role can have in terms of impact on an organization.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I was talking to a colleague recently, and he was telling me that the people group kind of operates like water. We have a ripple effect throughout the organization, and so everything that I do is really, impactful
Mm-hmm.
and um, affects people across the organization, whether it be in performance management or culture building, right? Even just the kind of policies that we set, and
Mm-hmm.
so that. I'm all about having impact, positive impact on a group of people, and so being able to be in a position where I can have a positive impact on all employees at my company is actually very motivating.
So I want to go back to talk about community building because in 2020, our work lives were so shifted and we had to learn how to connect and communicate and build community digitally, and sometimes internationally as well. So that is something that you enjoy, is figuring out how to build that community, with large, international teams that may be all across the world. So let's talk about that. What interests you about it?
Yeah, for sure. So I actually started that role in people and culture in March 2020.
Oh
I want to
boy.
say it was the first week of March. And so 2 weeks later, of course, the pandemic was declared and everything changed right overnight.
Yeah.
And what we had in our hands was a people emergency. And so the people and culture team went into overdrive and was really focused on protecting kind of the safety and security of our staff first and foremost. Um, and then addressing all of the other right impacts for our team over the course of the next few years. One of the things that, from an engagement standpoint, that we stood up because, of course, people left the office and went to work from home
Hmm.
in all cases across the business for the most part. was a platform actually to help us stay connected. It wasn't particularly very complicated. It was literally like a Zoom number, right, where we could
Mm.
all gather. We built a whole program around that that really focused on addressing the needs that people had that we were hearing through the surveys that we
Oh,
were running.
wow.
Because we were checking in with people, of course, like I think probably once a month for a while,
Mm.
just to check and see how they were doing, what they needed, what were we not seeing that they were experiencing and we needed to address. And so we brought in experts to talk about mental health. We talked about just working from home and how to do that effectively, how to kind of manage just the demands of family
Mm.
care during
Yeah.
that time, and also just to provide some fun as well. We did things like cupcake making and just lighthearted things. We did wellness, so we did a challenge, a wellness challenge where people went out and did steps, and
Mm.
also did signed up for some services where we could actually do like stretching together, just take like a 5 minute stretch break or do some yoga together. And that was very powerful, actually. And I heard from people during that time that they really appreciated the
Mm.
ability to kind of log in and kind of have a sense of community and see other people, and just be able to engage with one another in something that was a little bit, maybe not a work topic, but something that would be more, um, uh, helpful towards something that they were experiencing in their life, a hardship at that time.
Mhm.
So that's something that I've continued, and so we do that at my current company, kind of in a, and we sort of bend and structure it to sort of fit the needs of the employees at the time. But again, just intentional programming, like understanding what your clients, your customers need. Where are they finding difficulty, and how do you deliver something to them where they can all gather together and learn from one another, and learn helpful uh, ways to kind of be more healthy, right, and
Mhm.
engaged.
That's really awesome. And I really love how mental health was one of the first things that you listed. And so I think that's a really great way to keep people engaged is just having them know that you're looking out for them. So could you talk a little bit on, in mental health, that importance in the workplace?
Yeah, it is incredibly important. People have gone through just a lot over the last few years, right? First of all, change, right?
Yeah.
Change is difficult. I think we as humans are capable of moving through change, but when change happens abruptly, it can be
Mm.
very, very difficult to go through, especially when change is happening in all aspects of your life at once: work, personal,
Mhm.
societal. And so yeah, we definitely kept the airwaves open on that and did some training for first and foremost for our managers to
Mhm.
be able to sort of empathize, number one,
Yeah.
and then also be able to cite and see some of the warning signs, right, that somebody might
Wow.
be under mental duress, and
Yeah.
then of course to share with people the resources that were available and to bring in experts who could just talk about it um, openly. And what I found so interesting is when we had these sessions, we didn't have not a ton of people came, but maybe like 20, 30 people at a time would come. But then there would be like one person who I would get a note from after, and they would say,
Mm.
"This really helped me. This really changed my perspective. I just really want to thank you." And that to me, that was like absolutely worth it. If we could help just one person, right, in that particular session, it was completely worth the time and effort to put that together. Um, so
What you said that I absolutely love is you started, at the core in training your leaders because I feel like it's usually like, we can bring in someone to help the employees meditate, and that's kind of just a band-aid. But what you're doing is you're starting it, where it needs to start, and that have that trickle down to everyone else.
that's right.
That's really wonderful. So let's talk about communication is, something that another area that you feel really passionately about and try to, do your best at. And you talk about having a strategic approach to how you communicate. Can you talk a little bit about what that means?
Yes. communication must be very intentional, right? You can, first of all, communication is incredibly important. You can have the best program that you
Mhm.
create, people and culture, right? And you could make it perfect, right? It could be a fantastic benefit that you're providing. You've really thought through all of the details. But if you have not thought through literally your go to market plan, and I'm borrowing a product management term, right, in
Mhm.
terms of marketing term, in terms of taking a new product or service to your clientele, if you haven't thought through your marketing plan and delivery on that, then you are shooting yourselves in the foot.
Yeah.
You're handicapping yourself. Like, you've got to be able to get out in front of people and talk to them about and explain what the benefits are of what
Mhm.
you're doing and why you're doing it and why it's going to be helpful for them. And so this is a practice that I bring into the people and culture function that is very important. And so it's just being really thoughtful and understanding about who is your audience, what is it that what is it that you're doing then, and how is it going to benefit them, and leading with that.
Mhm.
Uh, so that's kind of in I would say, like, program, service, product delivery.
Mhm.
Uh, the other aspect of communication is alignment. So keeping a group of people aligned and focused on your mission or your North Star or your goals,
Mhm.
whatever it might be, right? That's incredibly important, because as a business, right, we are only as good as our ability to collaborate and work together.
Right.
Right? That's what makes us powerful as a species, right? We are really, really good at collaborating with one another. But when you're now trying to collaborate across like 100 people, 200 people, 1,000 people, right, it
Yeah.
gets a little bit challenging. And so you've got to be really, you've got to, like, create an intentional communication strategy around how you do that, and have some rituals in place where people know, like, okay, this is where I get to tune in, kind of make sure that I'm, here, where we are headed, why we are going that way. How is it that, I need to adjust what I'm doing in my role in order to stay within alignment kind of with the, because there's, the one thing that is for certain is change.
Mhm. Absolutely.
And so even if you have the best strategy, right, and the best kind of vision, you will have to take twists and turns to get there. And the more people that you have in your organization or your community, the more intentional and focused you need to be around communicating effectively on a regular basis to keep everybody basically with you and
Yeah.
going with you together. Um, so, yeah, so these are kind of things that I've learned along the way, and so I'm focused on creating these rituals around, nothing complicated, honestly, like a monthly all hands meeting, right, where
Mhm.
everybody gets together and you have sort of rituals around that, where you, for instance, have your leadership get up and talk about the state of where we are and where we're headed and what's coming and what's changing, and that can be incredibly helpful as you travel together, through time and
Mhm.
encounter changes. So
Yeah.
whether it be, right, stuff, especially in the last 2 years, change has come pretty abruptly, right? And like overnight, and everything
Yeah.
changed.
Yeah.
And so having those tools in place in advance just help you navigate that, and keep everybody together. And then most recently, right, we've had the change in the economy, and that
Yeah.
has hit startups pretty hard, right? That was almost like an overnight change. And so being able to navigate through that by having kind of regular, frequent communications with people can be very, very helpful.
Mhm. And part of that change, that was rough on everyone were the layoffs due to, COVID and that unexpected. And that involves communication as well. Some communication is better than others, when doing layoffs. So let's talk about, having that mindful strategic communication when going through layoffs.
Yeah, I would say that when you're going, especially when you're going through hard times, right, the having those rituals that you can lean on to give you that platform to be able to communicate some of the hard stuff, right,
Mhm.
is becomes even more important. And in all aspects, whenever you're trying to communicate a change or a new perspective, or you're asking people to do something new, um, you really need to focus on the why.
Mm.
To be transparent and explain to people, because we're all in the working world, we're all adults,
Yeah.
right? And everybody, I think everybody intuitively, like, they just want to do their best, and knowing having full context, of course, as much as you can share. You don't have to share everything, but share what you can. And to do that in a kind of respectful, clear way, and to do that kind of over and over again, right, at the various levels from your top leadership down to, the manager, and to do that in a public setting, right, with your leadership, and then to do it in more private settings with your managers and on a one-on-one basis. Like, that is how you can help people move through some of that um, difficult news.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah, and you mentioned transparency, which is a common word throughout this podcast. What does transparency look like to you, and why is it important in the workplace?
yeah, transparency. As I said, it's important because people need to. I mean, ultimately, if you're a company and you're a high growth company, really looking to affect kind of fast change, right, and be successful, you want to have people who are, thinkers, who
Mm-hmm.
can question and find kind of the best path in their particular roles. And so people, who are like that, like they're thinkers. They want to, the more context and information they have to really understand the what is happening and just some of the challenges that we face as an organization, that will help make them better. They will make better decisions. They will also, I would say it's almost like a contract, right? Like, if you are hiring somebody to come on board, and they are a, smart, ambitious person who loves learning, then being able to provide them full context really lets them free, right?
Mm-hmm.
They are now an agent for your business, and they can make decisions and kind of look out for the things that you, as a senior level executive, may not be able to see. So transparency is actually crucial and critical for a company to be successful.
Mm-hmm. And I also feel like if there's any kind of secrecy, the employee might be like, oh, this involves me. I've done something wrong. And kind of paranoia starts blooming and spreading. And that can be
Oh,
very,
yeah.
yeah, toxic.
Yeah, right, right. People, they're thinkers, right? So they try and fill in the blanks to the best of their ability, but they may not have the full vantage kind of point, or be sitting
Mm-hmm.
at the vantage point as somebody who might be a little bit higher up the chain and have access to more information. And so they will fill in the gaps. And a lot of times those gaps can be filled in a way that is just, leading them in a different direction, right? So being able to explain very clearly what is happening and why, and provide as much information as you can, um, will absolutely kind of help people move through uh, both the difficult stuff, and then also, help run kind of toward the successful things as well.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned surveys earlier in our conversation, and that's such a huge part of communication as well. So tell me how you utilize surveys in getting employee feedback.
Sure. Yeah, we run a quarterly process where we collect um, information from our employees to understand how their work experience is at the company. So it's an engagement survey. And I think we do two kind of deep ones, and then two more kind of quick surveys. And that information, in my experience, you have to move on that very quickly. Once you hear back, right, the contract, if I'm going to go out and ask information from someone, the contract is that I get back to them, I let them know what I heard, and then what we're going to do about it. So we work very quickly to um, share the information, share the survey results with our managers. We actually gather together our groups of employees, and we do more of a deep dive to kind of understand, because of course you're getting this feedback, but sometimes you have questions like, I think this is what people are saying, but it would be helpful if I could have a conversation to learn more. And so we do pull employees together without the manager so that they can speak a little bit more freely, and just ask for more information, more context, and then also ideas on how we might, as an organization, be able to address some of the concerns that are being raised. And then we share that with the manager, and then we hold them accountable for actually following through on that. So yeah, so we're doing it on a quarterly basis, so it can be, you're able to kind of keep your ear to the ground, and hear, every few months, right, what employees are concerned about, or where things are going great, right, and where we can lean in more. And
Yeah.
that, that's that to me has been sort of a very effective way to approach engagement.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like it. So it's about time to wrap up the conversation, which has been awesome. So before we do so, do you have anything that you would like to leave our audience of HR and people professionals with?
I would say just be very, focused on kind of who you're serving and the why behind that. And to really think about your employees, right, as your customer. That's just my training as a product manager, and it's helped me every day. And I know that people in this particular kind of industry, they do that, but it's wonderful to see that being leaned into more, right? Because especially during times of great change and just the dynamic environment that we live in, being as closely connected to your employees as possible is what will make you successful.
Truth. Well, Sarah, thank you so much. If people want to connect with you, what's the best way to do so?
Sure, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn, Sarah Livnat, and I would be happy to engage in a conversation. I'm always looking to learn more from this community.
Awesome. If you or anyone you know is like Sarah who wants to build community in their workplace, reach out to me, Lindsay at staffgeek.com. Thank you for listening to Staff Geek's People Analytics Podcast. I'm your host, Lindsay Patton, and I'm always looking to interview leaders who put people first. If you or someone you know lead with a people-first mindset, please email me at lindsay@staffgeek.com. That's LINDSAY at staffgeek.com. If you want to take things a step deeper and understand your organization's true culture DNA, I encourage you to take Staff Geek's free culture assessment. Just head to staffgeek.com and click the button that says Free Culture Assessment. Thanks again for listening.